Hello students, this is your economics teacher INR. I hope you are well and utilizing the time wisely.
In the previous year, like 10th standard, you learned about the meaning of national income, method of measuring national income, and so on. This year, you are going to learn about one of the major subject of economics. Today, you are going to discuss chapter 1, Introduction to Microeconomics. First, we will discuss meaning of economics and its nature and definition of economics. Please watch this video very carefully till the end. Fine. Let us enter into the concept. Students, we can have a good idea about the meaning of economics. Some of the important meaning of economics are those of leading economists like classical, neoclassical and modern economist. We will discuss the meaning of economics. Economics is a social science which deals with human wants and their satisfaction. It is mainly concerned with the way in which a society chooses to employ its scarce resources or deficiency of resources which have alternative uses for the production of goods for present and future consumption. Political economy is another name for economics. Polis in Greek means a state. The early writers used the term political economy for the management of the state. A person who runs a family is expected to make the best use of the income of the household. Similarly, the state is expected to get the maximum benefits for the society. Hence the term political economy. The existence of human wants is the starting point of all economic activity in the world. Unless we make effort, we cannot satisfy wants. Hence, wants, efforts and satisfaction from the circle of economics. We may say economics is the science of wants, but in the real world, the means which satisfy our wants are limited. That is, there is scarcity of means which satisfy our wants. Time and money are limited, and land, labor and capital which are used in production are limited. Though science has increased our resources, our wants have also increased. We may satisfy some wants now, but soon new wants appear. But all wants cannot be satisfied because means are limited. We study economics because there is a scarcity of many goods we want. This problem is common to the individual as well as the state. That is why we say economics is the science of scarcity, and scarcity is the basic fact of life. Our wants are unlimited, but means are limited. Here, means refers to resources. This leading to choice making if there is unlimited supply of goods which satisfy our wants. The problem of choice will not arise. It is true that we have many wants, but all wants are not of equal importance. Some we choose the more important and the more urgent ones. So, choice is the essence of economic activity. We may also say that economics is the science of choice. Of course, all goods we want are not scarce. There are certain things like air and sunshine which are available in abundance. Though they are very essential for our life, we do not pay any price for them. They are free goods and they are not very important for our study. But many things we want are scarce and we have to pay a price for them. So in economics, we study how prices of different things are determined. We may also say that economics is a science that deals with the pricing process. Modern economics is a monetary economy. Prices are paid in money, so money plays an important role in the economic life of their society. It is used for buying and selling of goods, for payments of rent, wages, interest, and so on. In economics, we study about the role of money in the affairs of mankind. Finally, we shall now sum up our discussion about the meaning of economics. Economics is a social science. Political economy is another name for economics. Economics is the science of wants. Economics is the science of scarcity. Economics is the science of choice. Economics is a science that deals with the pricing process. Modern economy is a monetary economy. Secondly, we will discuss introduction of economics. Students, take the page number 1. Introduction. In a subject like economics, there are many books available with titles such as Introductory Economics, Economics, An Introduction, Basic Economics, Elements of Economics, Elementary Economics, Fundamentals of Economics, etc. But these books have the same content, though each is intended or deliberated to serve readers of a different levels of interest and capacity. A good introduction to a subject, besides containing the meaning of its title, should have an explanation of nature and the scope of subject, that is, whether the subject is traditional or old or modern at present, static or dynamic. What is meant by static or dynamic analysis? In the case of static analysis, we examine a problem at any given moment of time. Even in static analysis, sometimes we considered a short period rather than a single point. We assume that some changes take place during the short period. Next, dynamic analysis. We examine the path or process by which the economy moves from one state of equilibrium to another. Time element is an important factor in dynamic analysis. See the next line. The readers should be in a position to clearly classify the subject as belonging to either arts alone or to science alone or to both. For a very long time or long period, the question where economics is a science or an art have been haunting the minds of economists and social thinkers as well. Right from the days of Adam Smith was the father of economics, has been considered as an art. However, with the scarcity definition given by Lionel Robbins, economics has come to be considered as a science. Science is a systemized body of knowledge acquired after the applications of a set of well-defined rules. In natural sciences and physical sciences, theories are arrived at after observation, investigation, and testing. Therefore, laws in science are exact, precise, and certain, and are so even in predictions. The subject matter of economics is man or human being. His behavior cannot be predicted with certainty and precision because many psychological motives goad him into action. For example, when price falls, demand increases. This need not to be true under all circumstances. Thus, the law is ought to subject not be totally exact and predictable with certainty as they are in science. See the next line. The significance of all the branches of the subject should find the place in it as they go through the introduction. The readers should be able to understand The relationship of the subject with the other subject like history, politics, mathematics, psychology, sociology, commerce, jurisprudence or law, and statistics. Newer areas incorporated into the subject that the newer was weighing of comprehensive its content are to be highlighted in the introduction. The methodologies applied in the derivation of its law are to be stated in such an introduction. Next, you are going to learn about meaning of economics and its nature. Student, take the page number 2. Economics meaning. The term or word economics comes from the ancient Greek oikonomics. Oikos mean household and nomos means management, custom or law. Thus the term economic means management of household. The subject was earlier known as political economy, is renamed as economics in the late 19th century by Alfred Marshall. Economics, its nature. The nature of a subject refers to its content and how and why they find a place in the subject. This nature is understood by studying the various definitions given by the notable economist. The existence of multiplicity of the definitions makes some scholars comment that a search for a clear definition of economics is an exercise in futility or ineffectiveness. J.M. Keynes, for example, observes that political economy is said to have strangled itself with the definition. Their presence makes studying a subject interesting, exciting, enjoyable, or worthwhile. In fact, the presence in a social science subject is a clear sign of the growth of the science. It indicates that there exists freedom for people associated with such as science to formulate fresh definition. These associates appreciate and make use of the opportunity afforded to them and come up with the plethora or excess of definition, saying the more, the nearer or cheerful. Each definition represents a unique generalization. A wide variety of definition paves the way to arrive a near complete agreements on the subject matter of economics. A science grows stage by stage, and at every stage its newer definition emerged and a concept associated with it receives some special emphasis. However, the study of a subject is made possible when it possesses its clear-cut definition and boundary. Lastly, you are going to learn about the definition of economics. There are 4 prominent definitions of economics. They are: first, Adam Smith wealth definition representing the classical era; Alfred Marshall welfare definition representing the neoclassical era; Lionel Robbins scarcity definition representing the new age; and Paul Samuelson growth definition representing the modern age. First definition, wealth definition. Adam Smith in the year 1723 up to 1790. In his book An Inquiry into Nature and Cause of Wealth of Nation 1776 defines economics as the science of wealth. He explains how a nation's wealth is created and increased. The term wealth has a special meaning in economics. In the ordinary language, by wealth we mean money. But in economics, wealth refers to those goods which satisfy human wants. But we should remember all goods which satisfy human wants are not wealth. For example, air and sunlight are essential for us. We cannot live without them, but they are not regarded as wealth because they are available in abundance and unlimited in supply. We considered only those goods which are relatively scarce or deficiency and have money value as wealth. According to wealth definition, economics studies the ways and the means by which both a state and the people can enrich themselves. Enriching the wealth of a nation was taken to mean normally increasing the happiness and well-being of the people of the nation. He considered that the individual in the society wants to promote his own gain, and in this process he is guided and led by an invisible hand. He stated that every man is motivated by his self-interest. This means that each person works for his own good. Next paragraph. Sumit favors the introduction of division of labor to increase the quantum of output. What is meant by division of labor? According to Adam Smith, division of labor means dividing the process of production into distinct and several component processes and assigning each component in the hands of a laborer or a set of laborers who are specialized in the particular process. For example, a tailor stitches a shirt in full. In the case of garment exporters, cutting of cloth, stitching of hands, body, collars, holes for buttons, stitching of buttons, etc. are done independently by different workers. Therefore, they are combining the parts into a whole shirt. A tailor may stitch a maximum of 4 shirts a day. In the case of garment exporters firm, it may stitch more than 100 shirts a day. Thus, division of labor results is increased production. See the paragraph. Severe competition in factories and society helps in bettering the product. Supply force is very active and a commodity is made available to the consumer at the lowest price. Criticism. For Smith, economics consists of wealth-getting activities and wealth-spending activities. An undue emphasis is given to material wealth. Wealth is treated to be an end in itself. This view leads him to ignore human welfare as an essential part of economics. Smith gives his definition when religious and spiritual values are held high. There is lot of criticism against Adam Smith's wealth definition of economics. It has got a bad name for economics. Some social scientists like Ruskin and Carlyle called it a dismal science, a dark science. But this criticism is unfair because it is based on a misunderstanding about the nature and scope of economics. As this definition emphasized wealth, they thought it is all about money. They concluded that economics taught men and women how to make money. So they called it is a selfish science, as in their opinion it emphasizes on the means to get rich. In short, Ruskin and Carlyle regarded economics as a dismal science, pig science, etc., as it teaches selfishness which is against ethics. A great demerit of Adam Smith's definition is that there is overemphasis on wealth. There is no doubt that we have to study about wealth in economics, but it can be only a part of the study. There is the other side. In fact, it is a more important side, and that is the study of man. Economics is a social science. Hence the proper study of mankind should be man and not wealth alone. Next definition, Alfred Marshall. Alfred Marshall, in the year 1842 up to 1924, in his book Principles of Economics 1890, defines economics thus: political economy or economics is a study of mankind in the ordinary business of life. It examines that part of individual and social action which is most closely connected with the attainment and with the use of the material requisite of well-being. Thus, it is on one side a study of wealth and on the other side and more important side a part of the study of man. Thus, economics is a study of man in the ordinary business of life. The business of life of extraordinary men like sages and saints is not studied by economics. An ordinary man in his ordinary business of life works to earn money to satisfy his and his family members' wants and desires. This is the subject matter of economics. His social action is also directed towards the attainment of material well-being. In short, in hands of Marshall, economics has become a science of material welfare. The important feature of Marshall's definitions are: first feature, economics does not treat wealth as the be-all and end-all of economic activities. Man promotes primarily welfare and not wealth. Second feature, the science of economics contains the concern of ordinary people who are moved by love and not merely guided or directed by the desire to get maximum monetary benefit. Third, economics is a social science. It studies people in the society who influence one another. Next, criticism. Marshall regard only material things. Some activities promote welfare but not material welfare. For example, the activities of doctors, lawyers, actors, musicians promote our welfare, but their labor does not result in the productions of material goods. If we follow the material welfare definition of economics, we cannot consider the activities of the above categories of labor as economic activity, as they do not promote material welfare. But we make use of their services. We pay a price, sometimes very high price, for their services. Their services have economic value. It is misleading to describe economics as the study of causes of material welfare. In short, he does not consider immaterial things such as service of doctor, a teacher, and so on. They also promote people's welfare. Second criticism. In the theory of wages, Marshall ignores the amount of money that goes as reward for their service of immaterial services. Third criticism. Marshall definition is based on the concept of welfare, but it is not clearly defined. Welfare varies from person to person, country to country, and one period to another. Marshall clearly distinguishes between those things that are capable of promoting welfare of people and those things that are not. If we go by the definition of Marshall, in economics we should consider only those activities which promote material welfare. But many activities do not promote welfare but are rightly considered as economic activity. For example, alcoholic drinks and cigarettes are bad for our health, but these commodities are produced and sold. There is a market for them and there are buyers and sellers. So the production and distribution of these goods is economic activity. In short, things like liquor that are not capable of promoting welfare but command a price come under the purview of economics. Fourth criticism. However, welfare means happiness or comfortable living conditions of an individual or group of peoples. The welfare of an individual or nation is dependent not only on the stock of wealth possessed but also on political, social and cultural activities of the nation. Third definition, scarcity definition of economics, Lionel Robbins. Lionel Robbins published a book, an essay on the nature and significance of economic science in 1932. According to him, economics is a science which studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means which have alternative uses. There are three major features of Robbins' definitions are: first feature, ends refers to human wants. Ends here refers to human wants which are infinite. However, man selects the wants which are to be satisfied immediately and wants that can be postponed. Here, human beings have unlimited number of wants. Second feature, human wants may be unlimited, but the means of satisfying them are very much limited. Example, income and resources like coal, petrol, electricity, etc. For example, when compared to the requirements of a household, a man's income is very much limited. On the other hand, resources are means that go to satisfy the unlimited human wants are limited or scarce in supply. The scarcity of a commodity is to be considered only in relation to its demand. Third feature, man has innumerable wants. He has to make a choice of the most urgent wants. Further, as his income is scarce and as it can be put into many uses, he has to weigh in his mind the very many uses to which his scarce and unlimited income can be put into. Moreover, he has to make a choice of all the other uses of income which he has to forego. Thus, he always makes a choice of the first best use and sacrifice the alternative best use and so on. Further, the scarce means are capable of having alternative uses. Hence, an individual grade his wants and satisfy first his most urgent want. Thus, economics, according to Robbins, is a science of choice. Next, a criticism of scarcity definition. First criticism, Robbins does not make any distinction between goods conducive to human welfare and goods that are not. In the productions of rice and alcoholic drink, scarce resources are used, but the productions of rice promotes human welfare, while that of alcoholic drinks does not. However, Robbins concludes that economics is neutral between ends. Second criticism, economic deals not only with the microeconomic aspect of resource allocations and the determinations of the price of commodity, but also with the macroeconomic aspect like how national income is generated. But Robbins reduces economic merely to the theory of resource allocation. Third criticism, Robbins' definition does not cover the theory of economic growth and development. Fourth definition, growth definition. Paul A. Samuelson, who gained the Nobel Prize for Economics in the year 1970, Paul Samuelson defines economic as the study of how men and society choose, with or without the use of money, to employ scarce productive resources which could have alternative uses, to produce various commodities over time, and distribute them for consumption now and in the future among various people and groups of society. The above definition is general in nature. There are many common points in the definition of Robbins and Samuelson. Samuelson definition tells us that economics is a social science and it is mainly concerned with the way how society employ its limited resources for alternative uses. All this we find in the definition of Robbins. But Samuelson goes a step further and discusses how a society use limited resources for producing goods and services for present and future consumption of various people or groups. An interesting point that Samuelson tells is that the society may or may not make use of money. Next, the major implication of this definition are as follows. There are four implications. First implication, like Robbins, Samuelson stated that the means are scarce in relation to unlimited ends or wants, and that such means would be put to the alternative uses. Second implication, Samuelson makes his definition dynamic by including the element of time in it. Therefore, his definition covers the theory of economic growth. Third, Samuelson definition is applicable also in a border economy where money is not used. Fourth, his definition covers various aspects like production, distribution and consumption. Fifth, Samuelson treats economics as the social science, whereas Robbins regards it as a science of individual behavior. Of all the definitions discussed above, the growth definition is stated by Samuelson appears to be the most satisfactory. That's all for today. We will continue in the next class. Finish the assignment by clicking the link below.